Welcome to Season 8 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm excited to share these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. It isn't every day that you meet someone who's changed their life and their career simply to make a difference and to help others. Today's guest is no stranger to this fact. Joan Hornig is the founder of the Joan Hornig Foundation and the founder of Pave the Way Jewelry, an organization that gives 100% of its profits to all nonprofits. And I'm so excited to share her amazing journey and our inspirational conversation about all that she's doing to make a difference in our world. I'm so excited today to have Joan Hornig, the founder of the Joan Hornig Foundation and Pave the Way Jewelry. Welcome, Joan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Heidi, for this opportunity. And thank you to all of the listeners out there who are going to make a big difference in the world.
They definitely do. And so do you. And I'm really excited for you to share your journey with everyone today, because that's really what we're here to do, is to talk about how we make a difference in the world and what that process is in our lifetime. And I don't really think that, well, let's start out, first of all, telling us what Pave the Way Jewelry does and your foundation. Just tell us quickly what you do, and then we're going to get into your story.
Okay, so Pave the Way Jewelry and my foundation is really built on a concept called social enterprise, which I was very instrumental in actually creating almost 25 years ago. It wasn't well known. And the idea behind that was it wasn't just talk about doing good and marketing for a cause or cause marketing. What it really was about was making a seismic difference, and really was I was determined to do several things, and that's what I do. And then it gets funneled sometimes through the foundation, but it always gets funneled out. That's the point. So I felt that women did a tremendous amount of volunteer work in the world, and they were so active, but they didn't feel that they understood the power of the purse. They didn't know how many decisions they made and how much money they were really spending. So they devalued their time in part, although it was very valuable, but they didn't put a dollar price on it. And so I felt that nothing could be more valuable than a woman's time, and her time spent talking about what she cares about, not just doing her volunteer time.
Right.
So I thought that jewelry would be a perfect prop, so to speak, and that when someone would see a piece of jewelry on someone and it would be noticeable, they said, and they complimented that person wearing the jewelry. So I like your earrings. That person could say, thank you. Do you know this supported children with autism? And then the story would unfold that they were essentially advertising with their dollars what their values were, and they were having a conversation of consequence. So to call it social enterprise is different. I become the philanthropic donor, but I'm the agnostic donor, because I never make a decision over where I'm giving the money. I ask every single person when she or he makes a purchase or they make a purchase, what charity they want me to donate to in their honor. And I donate 100% of my profit on that piece sold to the charity of the purchaser's choice. So what I have done is I have woven 501c3s into the lifestyle of all of the people who are buying my jewelry. And I'm empowering them to have a conversation of consequence, to understand that they have money to use, and that when they walk out every single day, they are a billboard advertising who they are, and who they are good people who care about others. So
I
that is the social enterprise
I
model.
love that. And if that isn't the title of your book, Conversation of Consequence, I don't know, or a podcast, it absolutely should be because it's so fantastic. I love it. I love it. So I think that people don't just wake up um and start this line of work. There's a journey, there's a process that we all go through. So just talk to me about like your early life and career. Did you have family members? Were you always involved in the community? Did you have role models? Or did it come to you kind of later in life? Like, what was your kind of journey to philanthropy going way back before
And
this?
I have to go way back.
Please do.
Okay, so I grew up in a village, which was a suburb of Cleveland, to parents who were transplanted New Yorkers who didn't have a tremendous amount of means. And there were some hard times, and nonprofits stepped in sometime. But what my parents taught me was that what you're worth is not what you have in the bank, but what you're worth is what you do tomorrow.
Oh, beautiful.
So every day counted. So I never felt less than when the other kids went off to camp, when they
Right.
did other things. I felt that I could do anything with my time that could make a difference. So I spent a lot of time in museums because my mother said you shop with your eyes and you take home as much as you can. I listened to music.
Uh,
You shop with your ears, you take it home.
right.
But when other kids were going to camp, I decided to be a candy striper because I couldn't go to camp. So I went downtown, in downtown Cleveland into one of the neighborhoods, and I was teaching 11-year-olds, inner city kids, how to read. And I'm old enough that there used to be travel agencies that had storefronts, and you would pick up brochures for free.
Right.
You might want to go there. And so I picked up all of this free material with them, and we dreamt about things, and we imagined going there. And one of the kids said to me, um, you know, I get food when I come here, but we don't have enough food at home. And I was 14, 15 years old. It was a long time ago.
Right.
And that was something that I didn't quite understand. And I said, really? And then he told me that that was just the way it was. And I decided I would put on my candy striper type uniform. And I spent months going door to door in neighborhoods raising money. And I was able to raise enough money for 80 families to have a complete Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh my God.
This is a story
Wow.
I never tell.
I love this story, Joan. This is a
So,
phenomenal story. Like, this is amazing.
so I'm really starting at the beginning for you that
No, I love it.
your listeners and viewers, I have never shared this story.
I love this.
So I went and really, and I went door to door and I actually told people what I was doing. And I must have somehow or another, when we had these 80 complete dinners delivered, a local news station did a profile on me.
Wow.
Of course, it was the time we didn't even save it.
Right.
It didn't make any difference to me that
Right.
they did it. But
Right.
what it did was it catapulted me into sort of a Ivy League trajectory. So because it got the attention of others of schools.
Right.
So it was also a time when it was called Concept One. And I was in a classroom with no teachers, no curriculum in high school in this village.
Oh, wow.
It was a very strange time for education. So I also didn't have enough to do because how could I teach myself?
Right.
So I read every book they had cliff notes on, taught myself how to make chemistry using soap, making soap, and everything I could think to do. My math was a little weak, but I was able to become a pre-college scholar at Case Western Reserve University. And this is important because the teacher I had called me up one day and said, "Who are you? You're not registered in this regular school. You're taking a
Right.
junior class. and you're getting the best grade. And, and there's my mother driving me down,
Oh
to
my
school.
gosh.
And he said to me, my wife went to Radcliffe, and I think you should go to a good school. Now, I thought I was going to go to Kent State, live at home, illustrate
Right.
greeting cards, write pithy statements. And that would have been a great dream. And that would have
Right.
been a dream come true because I would have gotten an education and it would have been safe and small.
Right.
That teacher, which came from me feeling that I could do things and I could take risks because I knocked on doors,
Right.
because
And
I
you made it
didn't,
happen.
because I made it happen. And this is what I believe: women make things happen. I love women. I love what we do. I love who we are. We see a problem, we address it.
Yep.
We tend not to wait. We don't doubt
Correct.
that that we're empowered to make a difference. So basically, I went on a tour of, of a couple schools. And when I was, and I chose Vassar. I chose Vassar because they were actively recruiting me. I could graduate in 3 years, and that would be cheaper.
Right.
I never saw it. I went there, and in my freshman year, I met my husband, who was on a date with someone else. When I went on a date with his best friend and roommate from
Okay.
Cleveland, and we got engaged a year later. And I was able to transfer to Harvard in the first class that admitted women who men from
Ah,
Harvard as a
which is
transfer
just
student.
amazing,
No,
right? I mean,
it's an amazing story. So
it-
I was 20 years old. I was walking down the aisle. I gave you a long preamble, but that's
no,
okay.
but it's a good one.
As I was walking down the aisle, I made two promises to myself. One was that I was going to be George's wife and be the best I could be. And two, because of the privilege I had through my education and the opportunities, the fact that I was going to have a big life, I promised myself that by the time I was 50, I was going to give back everything that I
Ah,
had, 100%. But the
you're
story,
making me cry, Jonah. We haven't even started.
no, but
Oh,
that is the real story,
that's
because
beautiful, because when you make a commitment to yourself, you follow through and you do it, and you've done it. I mean, you've done it. That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And I also think sometimes that, I mean, going back to the word people didn't know what philanthropy was, I think people like to put philanthropy in a fancy pants box, and they put charity as in a box if someone needs something from me. And it's all one box. There's no boxes. It's one place of giving and kindness wherever. It doesn't have to be categorized. And you can come from the fanciest address on Park Avenue, or you can come from the simplest means in Cleveland. And it doesn't matter. You can make a difference. And I love your story because it shows the trajectory of all of that. And what you did even when you didn't have a lot, you did so much. And I think that people don't feel, to your point of women being empowered or people feeling their power, people don't realize they have that power to make that impact, and that there's no greater joy than doing that.
what I think is that when everyone, first of all, I say everyone has something to give, and often it's a smile.
Yep.
And I think it's really important for people to look into the eyes of people they pass. Perhaps they're beggars, perhaps they're veterans.
Right.
Perhaps they're a young mother suffering, trying to cajole her kids into being quiet on an airplane, but a smile. And when we go back to the trajectory, I go back to the idea, and part of how I came up with jewelry as being the vehicle was because when women put on jewelry, they walk over to a mirror when they try it on.
Right.
I felt we had to be able to see ourselves and smile and feel that we look good, and feel so that we can feel braver when we go out there and take those risks, because people who are breaking new ground and doing new things, particularly in the philanthropic world, often don't have role models.
Agreed. Well, you are one, Joan, for sure. For sure. So everyone, I would say everyone, in the hundreds and hundreds of nonprofit founders and entrepreneurs that I've interviewed in the last 15 years, almost everybody, I would say 95% can tell you the moment that they said, I need to do this. So you're married, you go to Harvard, you go to Columbia, you get all these incredible degrees. You're obviously wicked smart. You're having a great life and great career. But something happens that says, I'm making you turn. And I'm sure you were obviously you've always been philanthropic since the beginning. But what happened that said, I need to start this?
I started this really, I would say that 9/11 was an important factor. And that is because I watched from my apartment the trade towers go down.
Oh,
I got my children and anyone I could get out of the school home.
wow.
But it wasn't 9/11 per se, as much as it was the reaction post 9/11. And the
Right.
reaction really troubled me because people started to profile. And the thing about New York City is we have diversity. And
Right.
what seems strange to people who grow up and live in New York is when they don't see diversity. But when people started to see it, I was very concerned. And my child had been taking a beading course, which became the new knitting after.
Right.
And I wanted to spend more time with her. So I started working from home most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time. And so in doing this together, I discovered a lot of people who were really in the diamond district. I really explored the diamond district. And even during my workday when I was doing private equity, I was walking to the diamond district. And what the diamond district reminded me of was something that was very important that I learned sitting at a trading desk, which is your word is your bond. And if your word is your bond, it doesn't matter. Billions and billions of dollars move um, on trust. And they move with, it doesn't matter what the person looks like, doesn't matter where the person's from, it doesn't matter what the person wears, doesn't matter what God, if there's a God the person believes in,
Right.
we don't care. We don't even, we just take it on trust. And when I walked into the Diamond District, what I saw was a mini trade. I saw the operations essentially of mini trading of the money
Interesting.
moving.
Yeah. I've never thought of
And
it,
there's
but that
nobody,
actually makes sense.
and there was so much trust, but people were, you had all these immigrants. They were giving, they were giving people things in little baggies before they paid for it on trust. The gold, the diamonds, the stones. It didn't matter what it was on memo. I'd never seen anything like this because, of course, I had gone into a store, gave them my card or gave them my
Right.
cash, walked out with the item.
Right.
No one ever just gave me stuff without knowing me. They didn't check.
Right.
And I watched this happen over and over and over again. And what I thought was, this is a beautiful thing. This is the best of America because you have people coming here with a skill set, wanting to have a better life, wanting to raise their families,
Right.
but very, very isolated in like little cubicles because they didn't necessarily speak with people of their same language. They got the space they got.
Right.
So I decided that it would be really interesting if I could build bridges in that community. And so I had three goals in that community. One was to help people grow their business so that, for example, someone who might be a caster might also learn to be a polisher and a sol. They could, if you solder something,
Right.
but that also I would go across different religions and ethnicities and try to build bridges. So I would make sure that somebody Jewish worked with somebody Arab so that
Right.
so they would actually touch hands
Right.
and that jewelry would actually do this. I designed this. So that was one thing that I cared about. Another thing I cared about was to get to know them well enough to tell them how important educating their children was, because that is, I still believe education is the American dream.
100%.
And it's been my story.
Right.
And then the third thing was I wanted to prepare them for a changing world because I knew that technology was going to come into the business. And I know from work I had done when I was in graduate school that technology can actually eliminate jobs. It can
Yep.
make it easier, but this is 25 years ago. But
Right.
I was
Before there was
studying
self-checkout at the grocery store, right?
before there was self-checkout. But what I knew this because I really studied what happened when the music industry, for example, when you go to the symphony and they could tape it.
Right.
So I understood what that meant, but people don't realize that symphony players are in a union,
Right.
you know, that, and so all of these type of things, and nurses, all of these type of things, in newspapers with hot type. So I knew what was coming. And I knew that they had to be prepared. And I knew that if they trusted me, I could help prepare them.
And so
So
you are leaving a private equity business. You're starting a jewelry business. You have this vision for helping all these people in this community that you're witnessing, that you're just kind of introducing yourself to, and you're inserting yourself in like, hi, I'm here to help, and I'm learning, and you're obviously seeing systems and processes that they don't even see within their own community, and you're trying to put it together. And did you have the vision that everything that you were gonna that this is gonna all be given to charity? Like, did you
mhm.
know instantaneously that that was part of the goal?
Yes, my goal was to ask people what they cared about. And this is another interesting
And what
journey.
year was this, Joan?
Oh my God, it was what, 2001, 2002.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
it's it
Like
was,
right after nine
it's
eleven.
a long
Right.
time ago. It's um my idea was, so I was very interested in that my kids thought Paul Newman was salad dressing and popcorn.
Right.
And they did not know he was an actor.
Right.
They didn't know, but they knew about Hole in the Wall.
Right.
Uh, Oprah, who I had first seen as a newscaster on television in Nashville, was had actually created a business of identifying need and then actually stepping in and giving money, of making
Right.
awareness. I felt that women always noticed other women's jewelry and they talked about it. And jewelry has so many sentimental issues and such status for women, and different from other
Right.
things. I
There's
mean, you might
emotional
say, I like your
connection.
purse, you know?
Right. There's emotional connection to almost everything that you wear has something emotional behind it.
And
Right.
and even though now we wear a lot of, vintage clothes and we reuse, we recycle, all of those
Right.
things, jewelry, we only borrow jewelry.
Right.
We really only borrow it in our lifetime. And it
Right.
gets passed on. And it gets warm and it gets a patina and all of these things. So I thought that this was a good thing to build on. And it takes very little real estate because jewelry's small.
Small.
It's not like I was
Right.
big
Right. You don't
canvases. I
need
wasn't
right.
making big
Right. You don't need a
paintings.
huge piece of real
I
estate.
wasn't
Right.
making chairs.
Right. Right.
And also because I understood commodities and things like that, I knew that I could melt it. All I would lose would be the labor. I could reuse it.
So interesting. I
Uh,
mean, right? I have my brother-in-law is Jewish, and they were moving a few years ago, and I was helping my sister and brother-in-law, and there was a little wall safe, and he goes, "Heidi, do you want this?" And I said, "No." I said, "What am I gonna do that?" And I shake it. I said, "Oh, maybe there's something in it." He goes, "Oh, well, let me check." And there's all these little stones in there. And I said, "Why do you have all these stones?" And they don't have children, just he and my sister. And he says, "Heidi, I'm Jewish. We were raised to roll. We were raised to know innately that we need to put something in our pocket and be ready to go. And that's what we do." And so I just forgot that they were even in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's just not the way I think, right? I just don't think that way. But when you're saying I could almost melt it, it's like, you could travel, you could go, like you could make a bar and put it in your purse and go wherever.
So this is very much really a part of it is cultural, but it was also about the fact that it also troubled me that people were giving me things on memo because they were laying out the money.
Right.
And so
It was good
I
for
would
you as
buy
starting a business, but not good for them.
right,
Right.
not good for them. So basically, what I wanted to do was because I'm so competitive, I wanted to do something that was one step better than combining Paul Newman with Hole in the Wall and Oprah
Right.
with identifying it and with her assets giving the money.
Right.
What I wanted to do was create the jewelry, pay people fairly, put them to work, grow their business, but say to you when you buy something of mine, what charity do you want me to donate to in your honor? And from day one, I have donated 100% of my profit on each piece sold to the charity of the purchaser's choice. Now that is not the profit on the business. There is no profit on
Right.
the
You pay
business
your
because
people and whatever's left over goes to a cause. Right.
no, I pay my people and I don't even factor that into the price. Okay,
Wow.
so no salaries are factored in, only raw materials.
Wow.
And
Wow.
since it's not bottom line, it has been a process essentially of me deaccessioning what I've
Right.
made.
Wow.
Um, but it's because I want you to know that what you care about, big or small, national or local, that you care enough about it that it comes to mind that you want it supported in your honor while you're alive.
Mm, I love that.
So, and I also wanted to help nonprofits understand that there are certain obligations they're going to have. And the obligations they are is to essentially market themselves and get
Right.
their story out there. It's
Right.
not simple enough to say, I do this if 10 others look like it. I'm not charity navigator. I'm not
Right.
opining on anything.
Right. Right. Well,
Um,
there's 1.6 million of us that are out there,
uh-huh.
and there's a lot of noise, right? And there's a lot of noise and a lot of space, and that's another question. The private equity and charity question is another topic for another day about rolling up nonprofits, but that's another conversation.
But you talk about it in your book. You talk about we employ a tremendous number of people and get a tremendous amount of things done in this country. This is very wonderful. This is a very important space that has been under talked about,
Correct.
and it has
Correct.
been underpaid,
Correct.
and it is many ways uniquely American
Yes.
in what we do. And perhaps it comes from tithing, the Judo Christian tradition. I
Right.
because people are used to giving, and that's the conversation of charity versus philanthropy.
So what challenges do you have when you're doing this show? And what are some of the challenges you ran into, especially early on starting out? What were some of the hard things? You're switching to a whole new industry, you're learning a new industry, you're creating a model that doesn't exist. You're in uncharted territory, just making the rules as you go and figuring it out. What were some of the challenges that you had when you were starting? Because almost
There
everything in
was
the
so many.
philanthropic space is hard.
Everything, yes, it's hard. I think that one of the biggest challenges was actually getting people, my many women, to take me seriously. If you are doing anything associated with what is traditionally a man's job,
Right.
take you seriously. When you do something that is tied to, and you switch to something that might be fashion or jewelry, they think that they could do it too. And what you're doing isn't necessarily important because it's not just about selling the jewelry. I have to design it. I have to
Right.
make it. It's not
Right.
vertically integrated. I
Right.
have to check it. I have to hire people.
Right.
We have to do the accounting. We have to do the bookkeeping. And from day one, I decided that every single charity that I would donate to would be located in a place where other people could learn about it. So if
Oh,
you go to my site,
Right.
Click on all the different charities that I've given to, local and national. There were over 1,000. And I actually made it so you can leave my site and learn about those charities. And they're just listed alphabetically.
Oh, that's great.
So
So
the challenge was they'd say to me, "Oh, let's go here or take a vacation or do this or do that. You're not, you're not busy anymore." And I'd say, "I'm busier than I ever was. I'm working
right,
7 days a week, 5 in the morning."
right.
I said, "You're not understanding." So that was actually a challenge. A challenge was to do this. And then people said, maybe you're doing this for self-adulation, which was it was a hurtful thing. But
I've heard those words before, by the way. I've heard that before, and it's you
it's like a shock.
it's a gut punch because you're
Yeah.
just like, wait, what? Why would I? That's the exact opposite of what you're doing, right? It's the exact opposite. You're like, how does people misconstrue this as trying to get the word out to help people? I've had those words, and it's absolutely was a gut punch to me.
So that challenge was brutal. Also, you raised something else, which was I went into retail. And
Right.
when I was working in various firms and for myself in the financial sector, I didn't cry. I didn't cry at work. My first trunk show week at Bergdorf Goodman, I cried. I
You you had a lot to cry about, I'm sure. There's a lot of stress going into all of this, and
well, I
you're trying to help people. So the backs of other people's expectations you're trying to help is a bigger load to carry than you ever carry, and every nonprofit founder, every person who starts a foundation, we feel their weight on us, and
yeah,
it's huge.
it's huge. And the idea is that it's supposed to be institutionalized. It's not supposed to be about us alone. And which
Correct.
is exactly when someone says that, or they say, "I don't believe you. You're not going to give it away." I mean, it's these are things
Right,
that that were very hurtful.
right.
But I got it together and I just kept going. And
So what fuels you to keep going in those moments when you have that hurtful comment or the setback? Or, I mean, it's hard. You still have kids, you still have a life, you still have laundry, you still have everything that everybody else has. And yet you're shouldering this organization, the people you're trying to fund and get the money funneled to. And you have an enormous responsibility you've put upon yourself. And you don't want to let anybody down, just like the 80 families at Thanksgiving. You don't want to let them down. What fuels you to keep going? What are those moments? What do they look like?
those moments really are the people I meet in the nonprofit sector. Those are the people, what they do is so extraordinary. And I can give you an example. I
Please.
was doing a trunk show in Neiman Marcus a number of years ago. I can't even remember. It was a lot of years ago, I guess, um, for something called Project Leap. Project Leap, I'd never heard of Project Leap, but it was a group of doctors and nurses who volunteered their time that went to places around the world to perform surgeries on children who had external deformities.
Like
Whether that
Operation
be
Smile,
whether
right?
that be like Operation Smile, whether it be a cleft palate, but it
Right,
could be an undescended testicle.
right.
It could be a stomach on the outside of it. And when I talked to them, I was so moved because many people can write a check, but very few people give their time.
Right,
And we're happy for both. I'm
right.
not turning any
100%,
check away. Absolutely. For a
100%.
charity. But when they told me where they went, and when they told me that in many of these countries, their mothers were ostracized because they thought the devil went through them because their children came out deformed.
Right.
Thought about how every mother's heart is the same. Okay.
True.
And all we want is our children to be healthy, safe, loved, be able to, we want to be there for them. And so I said, I want to go with you. So I went on a Christian missionary group to Haiti.
Wow.
And, and I went with the person who had introduced me to this group. She came with me too from Dallas. And it was 3 days of being with strangers, of praying early, of not being able to flush a toilet unless you had a bowel movement because you had to save the water, of people walking with guns, and of the extraordinary thing of people coming without clothes but bringing the medicine in their suitcase instead.
Wow.
And and 36 operations a day and no mistakes.
Right.
And I said, what more can I do?
Right.
I mean, so that would be the kind of thing that fuels me. It fuels me when I get invited into a food pantry and I see people who are kind enough to say, we can't serve pork because this is or meat because this is in this population, this group doesn't eat it.
Right.
When I see people, it's the people who do service are so extraordinary. I don't hold a candle to them.
Amen.
I am up here in an ivory tower, essentially. And they are the people who are so inspiring. And every single day, I don't meet them all for sure. I don't meet them. They're all over the world.
They're everywhere.
But I know what they're doing. And I know that it's harder than what most people do because they're also have families. They also have other obligations. And
they don't
choosing
make
it.
a lot of money, and it is what they do. They are angels among us, for
So
sure.
that is the impetus. If I feel really down, or if I haven't sold enough and I feel like, oh my God, I'm not a good designer, what am I going to do?
Right.
And I think if I don't do these well, then the people who make the things for me, it's like it's a cycle. And I think I just have to be good and I have to be better.
Yep. Well, and obviously you have been better. So talk to me about your success. Talk to me about what impact looks like for you. How do you measure that? Because it is monetary because it's the money going to the nonprofits, but it isn't really about the money. So what is your idea of impact? And some people, impact is a story you just told about being in Haiti. Sometimes, impact, I run a nonprofit for my day job for a living, and I have to write these grants. And impact, I'm running a youth leadership organization. How do you measure how many service hours are kids doing, or how do you measure an impact of a child developing to a leader? Impact is sometimes not measurable in a normal way, but how would you measure your impact?
I measure impact several ways. One is if somebody hears the story of what I do with the business, and they tell somebody else, that's impact. Because all of a sudden, again, we've started a conversation of consequence, and I don't have to be there to know about that impact.
Right.
I measure it when people say, I'm going to give 5% or 10% on the business. I'll take anything.
Right.
Everyone cannot afford to give 100%. I couldn't afford to do it if I wouldn't be, I can do it because I've had an education and I've had a great life and I have a great partner.
Right.
But I don't diminish any or anything anybody gives. And if I've inspired someone. So one time I went, I do speaking tours sometimes, and I did one years ago and I was in Nashville, and a gentleman had sold his company and was starting another one, and he decided he was going to follow this model after that because he had more than enough money. To me, that's impact.
That's a huge impact.
And so that's an impact. The impact is if someone who listens to this, regardless of age, says, I can do something. I can read to someone who is blind.
Right.
I can notice if someone is walking across the street and has a problem. I
Right.
could this is that's impact. Impact
Yep.
is defined in a context that matters, that is only relevant to what someone can do. But I believe that there's muscle memory. And I think that when you have a young child, that like the 6 or 7 or 8 pound child feels heavy. I think women will understand this because you're holding so tensely, you don't want to drop that baby. But the next thing you know, you're carrying a 36-pound child who's helping you carry him or her by hooking his or her legs around your waist.
Right. Right.
And you don't notice that you got stronger or you learned to accommodate it. And that's impact to me,
Right.
that we become a culture and we have a community of people who use their muscle memory of giving and carrying and caring to go forward and pay it forward and inspire others. That's impact.
That is impact for sure. So if you could dream any dream for Pave the Way or foundation or all of it, what's the big dream? What's the dream? Is the dream change? Is it the same dream, the same three things? Or has it evolved?
Right. Well, it has evolved. The dream has been my dream has always been to collaborate because I am and I've tried this out various times. One year I knocked myself off with costume jewelry on home shopping, and I gave all my profits away.
Wow.
And I got them to donate to St. Jude's and American Heart Association.
Fantastic.
So I like the idea of licensing fees to go to charity.
Right.
Um, there I have a collab with a store actually in Beverly Hills, Madison Mason, where we did some shoes using some of my jewelry as a motif, and because I've always wanted to make every step philanthropic.
Oh, I love that.
So that's one. It's those kind of things. Um, I would like, I would love a fragrance company to come to me because
Oh,
I believe we know when someone has been there, if we know sort of the aura of their perfume. And could you imagine having something that's called philanthropy lingers?
oh, wow.
Okay,
You are an entrepreneur, Joan. Wow.
so I want those kind of things, but most of all, what I want is I want institutions and retailers and everyone who sells my jewelry to understand that they should take the time to ask what their customers care about, not
Oh,
tell them to care about something.
right.
My dream is really about asking because we
Wow.
can
I
learn
love
a
that.
lot from other people.
Amen.
So
Amen.
that's that's my dream.
I love that. So, what life lessons have you learned on this incredible journey of yours? Because you've already shared so many incredible wisdoms and insights on kindness and giving and service. But what life lessons have you learned from candy striping, all the way through um, as you've been on this journey to serve others?
I learned that everyone is interesting and worth my time, that your time is more valuable to you than my time is to you, and that I have to use it wisely. And that actually I feel we're on the same team. If I respect what you care about and respect your efforts, we're on the same team. You can feel it, you know it.
Right. You do know it.
You know
You
it, you
do
can
know it.
feel it. You know it. It just exists that way. The world exists that way. And little children often care about other people. And it's when you get to see them, why do they make a picture for someone? Why do they go and hold someone's hands? They learn these things.
Right. It's innate in us.
Yeah,
And
it's
somehow it gets stamped out along the way. And it should be the other way around, right? It should be
it's
it
the
should be
other
that
way around.
muscle memory that you talk about that's developed the way kids go to PE class, the way that they serve should be the same. I mean, it's truly, I was fortunate that I went to a school and had role models in my family that it was drilled into me from like walking and talking, and it's just what you do. You don't even think about not helping someone. That's just, it's like breathing or brushing your teeth. But a lot of people weren't, and we need to model it and teach it and find it and encourage it and support it. So do you think you've changed in all of this? And if so, how?
Well, I certainly grew older.
That
It's
happens.
been
That
a lot
happens
of
to the
years,
best
but
of
it
us, Joan.
happened. Um, do I think I've changed? I think that I am a more confident person. I think that because I've taken risks, I think that one of the things that I've learned is if something doesn't work out, I can handle that risk of disappointment. But I'm the way I make promises to myself and keep them, the way I did when I was 20 and I walked down
Right.
the aisle and made those 2 promises, I keep all the things that I made that weren't right, that didn't work out. And I keep them and I go back to them a number of years later and I learn that I can fix it. And so I learned that
Mhm.
sometimes you acquire things knowledge without even knowing about it.
Right.
So that is, if I have a good idea, I don't want to give it up. Sometimes one has to move on.
Right.
We
Right.
can't, I can't, I don't get stuck. I'm very good at moving across through process, but that doesn't mean I give up what I couldn't handle. I go back, what I couldn't fix. I will
Right.
go back to it. And often I've learned that over time I've solved that problem. And it might be a design problem, but it might also be a marketing problem.
Right. I love that. I was on a plane last night coming home from a wedding, and I watched the Martha Stewart documentary, and she said almost the identical thing, except she used an analogy of a garden. She said, the reason that I garden is when something is wrong or something is broken or something is dead or something just isn't working. I just somehow know I can go back, I can pull it out, uproot it, and I can plant something new and I can find the better way to make it better. And she said, and that's why I garden. As I garden, I'm fixing other things in my life, but it always goes back to the garden for her. But it's very much the same thing. You look back at what is dying, not thriving, not healthy or well, and you go back and you're like, oh, I can make it better this time.
So the risk of disappointment, I'm no longer afraid of because I believe that I will ultimately not be disappointed.
Right. And it's the gift we get as we age, right? The
That's that
confidence
aging
the
helps. Yeah,
confidence takes away the fear, takes away the risk. There are gifts. We get a couple wrinkles with it, but there are gifts.
I earned my crow's feet.
Yeah, well, you and me both. I have a lot of Botox in this face. Nothing else, just Botox, but I've earned all I've
Well, I
earned
have gray hair. I never dyed my hair.
all the ones. But it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I am guilty as charged for dying. So, Joan, tell me where we can, the holiday season is approaching. Tell me where and how we can find, support you, buy, learn about these nonprofits, learn about the foundation, learn about Pave the Way, and make a difference through all the things that we're doing this year and really have conversations of consequence, which I love that. Where can we
Absolutely.
find you?
Well, you can certainly find me on my website, which is pavethewayjewelry.com. You can also go to PTW, standing for at pavethewayjewelry.com, at ptwjewelry.com, on Instagram, on all of the traditional things. But what I want everyone to do is find themselves in a situation where they give one extra thing and to someone that they don't expect to give something to. And that would be the way to find me in spirit this
Mm,
holiday season.
I love that.
That do one thing that takes a little extra effort that helps someone else. And I'd be really happy because that's another way that we measure impact. Obviously, I want to sell jewelry. Obviously, I want you to go to the website and look up the nonprofits and put a new one in because I get so excited every time we get to put a new one in. But I really want people to understand how blessed we are and and how many people can benefit and people we don't know, because then they don't owe us back anything. They're not obligated except to give in the future when they're on their feet. So I believe in a hand up, not a handout.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. And what a beautiful, beautiful message for everyone, not only during the holidays, but every day, because people listen to this podcast hopefully over and over and all the time at different times of the year, because giving is not seasonal. Giving should be something that we do like brushing our teeth. It should just be, like you said, even a smile, even a smile.
That's how they can find me. They can help redefine what an investment in jewelry means, because it makes a difference in someone's life in addition to having the
Absolutely.
sentimental value.
So beautiful. Joan, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are pure inspiration. I am so grateful for your time today, and thank you for sharing your incredible story with us. You are remarkable.
Well, thank you, Heidi. You are remarkable, and thank you to all the people out there who've given us time.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to Joan about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think Joan's comment that everybody has something to give, even if it's just a smile, was so inspiring and true. To learn more about these modern-day heroes and entrepreneurs, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, for being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters.